Well, hello everyone. I am Matt Williamson. I apologize, still kind of fighting through this cold. Much better today than yesterday, though. Done plenty of shows, so not a big deal. Probably not worth bringing up, but if I'm snorty and whatever, my apologies. But we're talking pass rush today, Steeler pass rush, of course. And the kind folks over at FTN Fantasy who bought out Football Outsiders, all the DVOA information, advanced statistics are on their site. They do great work. Aaron Schatz have done great work for years, but they broke down every defense based on number of pass rushers last year. So, 3 or fewer, 5, blitz in general, 6+, etc. One thing before we get started on the Steelers I thought was really crazy is former Steeler coach Brian Flores, who's now the defensive coordinator with the Vikings and might be a head coach again soon. The Vikings led the NFL in 3 or fewer pass rushers and 6 or more pass rushers. Ultra aggressive, change things up. We don't have a lot of what this means is we don't really have a bread and butter. We don't have great personnel. So I'm going to throw all kinds of stuff at you in unpredictable ways. I just found that interesting. I wanted to throw that out there for a little bit of context. But let's dig into this. So for the Steelers, just focus on the Steelers. Number of passing snaps where they rushed 3 or fewer. Only 3.4% of the time. Now that sounds very, very low, but it's really middle of the pack. Only 13 defenses were a lower percentage. There was a couple that were like under 1%. Just don't ever do it. But the Steelers had their share, middle of the road, slightly less percent of 3 or fewer man pass rushers. That's almost all going to be 3. I mean, how many snaps are there? Maybe a Hail Mary where there's 2 or fewer. But anyway, on just those snaps where they rushed 3 or fewer, they allowed 5 yards per pass attempt. Now, remember, that's very good. But these are only passing snaps. So yards per play is going to be higher. We're not including any of the run snaps. You know what I mean? So if you allow 6 yards per pass play for an entire game, it's pretty good. There's going to be some bigger completions. There's not, it's not a yards per play for the whole game where there's a 1-yard run to bring things down. So we're only talking about pass plays. Just want to get that out of the way. So the Steelers with 3 or fewer pass rushers allowed just 5 yards, 50 yards per play. Really, really good. When it was a standard 4-man rush, they'd use that on 71.7% of dropbacks, opponent dropbacks. Again, middle of the pack, not super high. I mean, they're not as blitz happy as you thought. I mean, they're 71.7%. They were 6.6 yards per play allowed when only bringing 4. Now, that's the worst of the 4 categories for them. I'll go through the other 3 in a minute. But it's middle of the road to good, to be honest with you. I mean, so if you're talking about compared to the rest of the league, when I only rush 4, I'm giving up 6.6 yards per play, often on 1st and 10, you know what I mean? Or 3rd and 18, so that is good. It's not great. It's their lowest yards per play in the 4 categories. The next category is a 5-man rush. Steelers were at 17.5% in 5-man rushes, also about middle of the pack. They're not super strong in any one of these number of pass rusher categories in terms of being overwhelming, which I think is a good thing. They allow 6.1 yards per play when bringing 5 pass rushers. Very good. I mean, quite good. Because that's often going to be 3rd and long situations. It's hard to break down. Every team uses it differently. They can use that on 1st and 10 as well. But if you're only allowing 6.1, that's pretty darn good. I mean, so that we'll get to some bigger picture stuff here again. Now, the last one is 6 or more pass rushers. In this case, they did it 7.5% of the time. Only 5 teams were higher. So I stand a little bit corrected. This is the one that they did in the obvious top, 15, 20% of the league. That's still only 7.5%. So it's a small sample size to bring 6 or more. But they only allowed 4.5 yards per play, which is very good. I mean, that's very, very good. I mean, so now does that mean they should blitz 6 or more every pass play now for the now until eternity? Of course not. But my hunch is, by looking through these numbers, watching every Steelers snap, knowing what I know, they probably were very good pulling that card from up their sleeve at the right time. You know what I mean? Didn't see it coming. Here comes a corner we didn't account for. Ball has to come out quick. They get 4 yards, tackle the catch, get off the field. You know what I mean? Or incompletion, that we didn't see coming. So they did it a pretty high percent, 6 or more pass rushers, but still only 7.5%. But it was really effective when they did it. To me, that's a play caller coaching thing, probably more than anything. Maybe there's other reasons. There definitely is more than one reason, but I do think they unleashed that at proper times. BetOnline is your number one source for all your summer sports this season, from MLB, golf, and so many more. All the latest stats, news, and scores available to follow all your favorite teams. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest team matchups, player props, and odds on just about every sport out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, a couple other things. If you just look at it in terms of blitz percentage, just bringing 5 or more. So adding the 5 plus the 6+ that we talked about at the beginning of the show, they're right around 25%. They blitzed on about 1/4 of opposing dropbacks. And on their blitzes, they only allowed 5.6 yards per play, which is good. It's not the best, but it's above average. It's quite good. They've always been a good blitz team. I'm going to talk about the upcoming year more, but assuming health, I would think you could blitz less and have equal results, especially if Cam's himself, Benton steps up, et cetera, et cetera. So overall, only 5 teams had a better completion percentage allowed than the Steelers. Really good. I mean, when you threw the ball against the Steelers, it was not completed all that often. But they allowed 7.3 yards per completion overall, which was only better than 8 different defenses. So that's not great, So their yards per completion, not yards per pass attempt. So make sure that doesn't screw you up with the first half of the podcast. When the ball was completed, it was for 7.3 yards, no matter what the situation, no matter what the number of pass rushers. Because if you listen to the first half, you're like, all their numbers were under 7.3. Well, yeah, because that includes the incompletions. We're just talking about dropbacks versus X amount of pass rushers in the first half of the podcast, where this is when the ball was completed, it was for 7.3 yards allowed, which was better than only 8 defenses. But they had a very good completion percentage. So they didn't allow a lot of completions, but they allowed the completions to go for too big of yardage. See what I'm saying? They also allowed 23 passing touchdowns allowed, which is middle to lower end. Only 12 teams allowed more passing touchdowns. Okay. Now, is this crazy data I just unpacked and sent your way? No, not really, but I think it's noteworthy. And I wonder what could change. Could they generate a lot of pressure with just a front 4? Absolutely. They have the personnel to do it. But I think it's in Tomlin, Blitzburg, this organization's DNA that they're going to mix their pressures. They're going to mix their blitzes. It's not just going to be 4 drop 7 all the time. That ain't never going to happen around here. I mean, no chance. Now, what can we do? And 2 more things. I also think in terms of blitzes, you might see a little bit different variety of blitzes. One thing about Patrick Queen, excellent second level pass rusher blitzer. Same is true with Roberts. I thought Holcomb was decent at it. And I think Wilson, he's a rookie, so it's hard to say, certainly is capable and was very good at it in college. So I think you might get, remember when Vince Williams would end up with 5, 6, 7 snaps off the second level, or sacks off the second level? I think you might get back to more of that, more pass rush production from true off the ball linebackers, and maybe more Kendrell Bell blitzes, from the second level, because this group is really good at it. Now, can they time that up and keep defenses or offenses off base by doing it well, like they do with the 6-man or more pressures? I would imagine. So it might just be one more golf club in their bag, in terms of pressure, one more thing they could send at them. In terms of getting the yards per completion down and the overall passing touchdowns allowed down, I think one thing that's promising there is much more team speed now in the back 7, especially the secondary, but also Queen and Wilson. Those guys matter too. But getting rid of the Patrick Petersons and the Levi Wallaces, and even if Jackson's not a great number 2 corner, he can really run, so their team speed in the back 7 improved quite a bit. And you would just think that there's going to be less people pulling away after the catch, less people beating you over the top, yards per completion, I would think sets up well to go down because you're faster. You just cover more ground, you get more people to the ball, that type of thing. So I thought that was an interesting study for, start of July here of Steeler pass defense, really digging into the numbers in terms of how it correlates to number of pass rushers, all that good stuff. Obviously, if something tragic happened, like TJ Watt was lost for a stretch, you couldn't rely on your bread and butter. You'd probably have to blitz more, et cetera, et cetera. But all things being equal, that's my thoughts. All right, take care.